Hey, welcome to episode 30 of the Critical Fools podcast. This week we'll be discussing a film that was on my radar for many years now, The Florida Project, directed by Sean Baker. Before I jump into the synopsis, though, I want to give a little color on this film because I actually did some side reading and interview listening. What I found interesting was um, this director's background is like he's actually from northern New Jersey. So actually, a scene that happens in this movie makes more sense now. He went to NYU, and he has a funny story because when he talks about going to NYU, he said like when I first started NYU, I wanted to make the next Die Hard. I guess he was a big fan, but then he left NYU and was like, no, I want to make indie films only. And apparently to get funding for this film, so he wanted to do this film back in 2011, but he was a no-name director and he knew he needed a budget for this one, and he couldn't get it. But he had a film that did really well in Sundance called I think Tangerine, and I haven't watched it. It might be a candidate for our podcast in the future, but he actually filmed that with an iPhone. And it actually got rave reviews at Sundance. So like I think in our podcast we discussed scrappy movies and scrappy directors. I really like lit a light bulb, and I was like, and it got me curious. I looked at the budget for this film, and he was able to get more funding because he needed it, but it's only 2 million, and at the box office, it only got 11 million. So it really is like a true what I would consider indie-ish film. And I'm a big proponent of indie films and directors taking chances, and I think this film does take a lot of chances because it's a group. Like I'm gonna get into the synopsis real quick, but it's the topics it discusses is I think very can be uncomfortable at times, as well as I think he is putting color on people who I think unfortunately have kind of been forgotten in our social discourse because we often talk about other groups who are like subjected to economic poverty and abuse and all and those kind of ailments that get you trapped in a cycle of basically torment. But anyways, real quick on the synopsis of this film. It takes place in Florida in a motel really close to Disneyland or Disney World. Sorry, Disney World. And it follows the story of like Mookie and her and well, there's other children, but mainly Mookie and her mother Haley, and how basically like a snapshot on like how living in this world is a struggle every week. And we'll get into interesting scenes and topics. But I found this movie very, very. I knew this was a reason why it was on my like radar for a while. I just never got a chance to watch it until recently. But I did really take a lot from this movie, and I do appreciate a director who isn't afraid to talk about topics and make a narrative about things that are not like something that is conventional in our society today. Real quick, I want to like, yeah, I know that I've been talking about the movie for a while, so I'm curious about what you thought watching it, like full time through, and anything that like just before we get into the details that you thought was kind of surprising in this film.
Yeah, so I'll just say this sort of film continues on our trend of reviewing movies that have touch upon sort of class differences, and it was just interesting because I've actually been to Orlando, Florida, a long time ago, and we actually went to Disney World. But yeah, this is obviously such. It's just interesting because it's the setting of this film is so close to Disney World, yet it's like two completely different worlds, right? You're talking about people who live in, they're definitely lower income. They live in hotel rooms as their sort of permanent residence, even though they find loopholes to try to declare it, make it look like it's not their permanent residence. My big takeaway from this film, it was just really raw. It kind of felt like a day in the life of these kids, because it is a slice of life type of movie. But yeah, just sort of the lengths that people will go to survive. It was pretty raw and yeah, just difficult to watch at times in this movie. And I thought they did a good job sort of setting the scene to give you or to sort of put you into the world of these people.
Yeah, before we get into an early scene in the film, I forgot to mention that I think the reason he wanted like a little more money than usual is that he actually didn't want to shoot this movie digitally. So this movie is actually shot in a actual 35 millimeter film. So I found that to be interesting. I'm not a director, so I sometimes can't tell the difference, but I assume there's a stylistic choice into doing that, maybe to make it
Sure.
feel like we're like the fourth wall. We're there with them, because I do agree. It felt like often like we were just like a silent passenger in this film. But okay, so early in the movie, I think one of the first things that really hit me early was, it starts off like, you're following the children, they're playing, I think they're spinning on the car,
Mhm.
they're just playing around. And what hit me early was like, I think we often forget because, often we don't interact with people in these worlds, that they don't really have like role models or cultural norms that are taught to them, right? They're just like kind of like waking up, doing things the next like that day, and then messing around and going to sleep. Like you don't see there's a really an input on like I think it was like by choice to show that like the children don't seem like they're always like reading or you doing any schoolwork, right? I think that was something that I noted early. The parents aren't really around often. Their mothers, and there's no fathers actually. Like the amount of fathers, I think one kid that was leaving, he had a dad, but
Yeah,
for the most part, the main three kids, which I think is Mookie, I'm trying to remember the names. Mookie, I remember Mookie the most. Scotty, Dickie. I can't remember Dickie as much. I'm trying to remember her or him. But at least with like Mookie, who it's the main child. She doesn't have a father figure, and I think that also
not Mookie, Mooney.
Mooney. Sorry, Mooney. Oh, Mookie's still do the right thing, dude.
Yeah.
mental laughs there. Too many movies. Mooney like doesn't have a father figure, and I think that is a more of it's a realistic depiction of like what happens in that world when you don't have a responsible adult figures, and how I left the movie like thinking like, okay, even though she's spoiler to get to the end, but even though like how the ending happened where we have like the government coming in, I couldn't help but feel that like she would end up like her mother, and I think that's a very powerful feeling in a movie.
Yeah, the cycles like we've talked about before.
But yeah,
the one thing I will point out though, because you're talking about a lot of these kids, unfortunately, in the film are raised by single parents. It's interesting to see because the opening scene shows that these kids are spitting on the car of some new resident at. Essentially, there's like within this area of the film, there's a chain of hotels, and unfortunately, it's a sad situation to be in, but people will move there, and that will be their permanent residence because, right, it's sort of they're cheap hotels, and so it's not very high rent, and so these people move in, and these kids have been living there for quite a while, probably years, and they see that like a new resident has come in, so they go. And the three of them all line up, and they go to the second floor, and they start spitting on this car, and so that they're engaging in some mischievous behavior. And then the person whose car that is comes out and sees that these kids are spitting, and then the kids run away, but they find out who. Essentially, the lady finds out who does it, and so it was, I think, Mooney and her other. I'm trying to remember. There were three kids. There was Mooney, and then her sister.
Dickie leaves.
Yeah.
So the main two kids in this film is Scooty and Mooney.
Yeah, that's right. So with Scooty and Mooney, they leave back to their place, and then Dickie goes back to his. And Scooty and Mooney are the two whose parents, they don't really get in trouble, but Dickie, who's raised by the single dad, he gets punished and says you can't hang out with him anymore. It's just interesting seeing the difference in the way that the parents dealt with their kids for engaging in bad behavior, right? And the single mothers chose really not to punish their kids, whereas the dad did.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting difference there. And because I think like dads generally tend to be more disciplinarian.
Yeah. Yeah, that early scene I think is important because I think it, like I was mentioning, it sets the tone of the movie where you start seeing that, poverty, being in the lower class does change you culturally, right?
Sure.
Like if you pluck these people and you put them, let's say, in Orange County, California, they look like aliens, no matter if they are American citizens, like how they talk, how they act. Like there's some scenes in this film where I was like, you know what, this is really like hitting something here that like, it's not often you sometimes see, I give credit here to, again, Baker, because he did mention, I listened to this interview where he said like, he was actually worried about William Dafoe being casted because he was like, sometimes when you have these Hollywood A-listers play these roles,
Mhm.
it doesn't come off the same, right? And I'm thinking of the movie Hillbilly Elegy that I finished, and I liked the movie, but I get what he's saying because even though it was really good, the fact that like Glenn Close and what's her name? You know what I'm talking about? It's like she's pretty famous now. I'm gonna just look it
Okay.
up. Um,
But the fact that she plays it just doesn't come off as authentic.
Great performance like by them, but like these
Mhm.
are well known. You see them in many movies, and you can sense that they are acting. Like they
Mhm.
don't. They're trying to like. You can't help but feel like there's still a little bit of like how they're portraying the roles because of what they've read and heard and some of the
It
the
doesn't
look,
come as natural to them. Yeah,
the
I get it.
stereotypes, right? Well,
Yeah.
like if you have like basically B, C, D, like for many of these actors in this film, they've never done
It
much.
was like their first role for a couple of them.
Yeah, so they felt like they were just off the street, which I think gave the film a distinct feel, and I think like
Mhm.
it made it feel like really authentic in that sense, which I did appreciate. But yeah, I remember watching the first like 20 minutes, going like, "Oh wow, this is gonna be like it's gonna be like a film that's really gonna hit home on like a lot of the social anxieties that's happening in America right now."
Hmm.
But yes, I do agree. Good point on the parenting. Like I remember that scene, but I didn't have the same click. I think in general, like there's like a handful of scenes that really like hit home. But I would say like, oh, so speaking of Willem Dafoe, since I brought him up, what did you think of Bobby's character? I thought he did really well in this kind of unique role where like he was trying to play like the motel manager, and that's not something that he usually, that's not a role he usually does, right? He does a lot of interesting roles, but this was like must have been a
Oh,
different.
it's totally different. I think I saw an interview with him where he read sort of the script of how this was, and he just wanted to do something that was a little more like real and more impactful. I thought he did a great job being the sort of motel manager slash like security slash maintenance man. Like he was everything. He was do it all, and he's put in a tough situation because you're trying to manage this huge motel unit and all of the issues that come with it. And so he tries his best that he can to sort of give. To be empathetic with these people, but he still has to do his job at the end of the day, which is managing the hotel. So it's rough, man. I don't envy people who are in this position because that's a brutal job to have.
Yeah, his job, I felt like he was like the bridge, right? Because he was trying to do his job within the constraints of
He's a middleman, really.
like dealing with the tenants.
Uh-huh.
At the same time, remember that scene where upper management comes? It goes like, "Hey, this is a violation. This is a violation. You need to have
Yeah.
them bikes."
But you need to put the bikes on the back. They can't do that.
Yeah, and he's like, you see that he's trying to like he wants to be employed, right? So he's trying to say, "I'm going to do it," but you feel at the same time like, man, like this is not the biggest worry. The bikes, like we have other issues here, like and I think that remember that scene where he talks about like he's going to fix the vending machine, not the vending machine, the washer.
But yeah,
and it just feels like that scene. I remember that it's like, and I think it's towards like
it's towards the end, I believe.
towards the end. But in that scene, I feel like it shows you like this guy's putting on so many hats that like he feels he's overstretched.
Yeah, and that was even more evidence. Oh yeah, when he has to the ice machine's down and he has to move it, and he has to call his son to help him move it. And he's like, "Oh, I basically he thought I was like helping you out." And he's like, "No, dude." He's like, "I did it because you're my dad. I was helping you out. I don't need the money. It's 2 hours away from you. It's inconveniencing my day." It's like, "But I did it because I wanted to help you." He's like, "But then that was a really interesting scene with him and his son because you could tell there was a lot of tension there."
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pride and there's probably a lot of backstory we're not privy to.
Well, you know that him and his son's mother are no longer together. You do know that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bitterness there. You could tell from William Dafoe's character.
Yeah, Bobby. Yeah, what I liked about Bobby and William Dafoe's portrayal was it must have been tricky for him to work with people who are really inexperienced.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes when we've been covering movies where even if they're kind of like indie, sometimes they have experience and so they're able to, work on screen. Him being like the veteran, he must have felt pressure to carry also like help the cast. And that's I'll tip my hat there because it's not always easy to ramp up rookies, right? And also I learned a little bit about like children actors, how like especially if they're really young, like Mooney and the children in this film, that actually it's you have to really practice with them. Like they, you know, they don't know their lines, or they're messing up, like how they, you know, look at the camera, or they get distracted. And so that's a challenge for like other cast members and also like the director. So I got the sense that this film was not as easy. Like you think it's easy because it's just like in one setting, but it wasn't as easy as like, I feel like it wasn't as easy as I thought it would be. Like it's no film is easy, but there were some challenges here that I thought were kind of interesting because of the casting and just the, you know, the setting. It's also hot in Orlando in the summers and
oh, scorching hot, dude.
But anyways, rewinding back to before we get you know, to towards the end. So after the car scene, I think the next scene that kind of like I guess in my mind, like kind of like what's the term I'm looking for? I think it's in the middle. I can't remember like the order of these scenes because I don't think they matter that much. But what did you think of that scene where the old man showed up to the to talk to the children? I'm gonna say it that way.
Like I said, this movie was raw and it was so uncomfortable at times that you could tell. I mean, the kid was, the adult there, the old man was, you know, he was predatory because he didn't belong at the hotel. He wasn't staying there. He just saw these kids, and so the one thing I will say is like a lot. As bad as this environment is for kids growing up, the one good thing it does have going for it is it's, you know, it is a community. So all of the kids kind of hang out. They all know each other. Even the moms, you know, they all sort of kind of look after one another. Even though individually, like these units aren't great, you know, the style in which the kids are being raised. Together, it kind of does help, though, because you do create this community within this motel of people looking out for one another. So that is one benefit. And so all the kids sort of play with each other, you know, on the grounds outside of the motel, and this creepy dude comes out, and, you know, he's obviously trying to be predatory. It's very uncomfortable, and that's why I do like Bobby's character. He does care and looks out for the residents, right? Because he's responsible for them. And so he goes and takes care of it and makes sure that nothing bad happens to them.
Yeah, I think something I took out of the scene was I remember reading, I think this is relatively recent, that like they finally caught this serial killer, I think in Florida, actually.
Oh, I'm not surprised. It's Florida man, bro. Anyway, go ahead.
Atlanta reference there.
Yeah.
But but when he was being interviewed, apparently what he said to the police is that like, because basically it was like a not trivial amount of people. It was like, I think a lot, like I want to say 50, but I don't know the exact number. But what he was saying was that he recognized early, and then, you know, serial killers do this, right? It's like, I recognized early that if I killed people that don't matter to society, nobody looks for them too hard. And when I saw that scene, I was like, this guy's targeting these specific
people who are vulnerable.
Yeah, because if they disappeared, if the government isn't like aware of them, they're not gonna look too hard. They're not gonna, they're not gonna.
You know, it's unfortunate, but it was the. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say they're not gonna. What's the, like this thing I like? They're not gonna go. They're not gonna turn over every rock to find or to figure out the truth here.
No, it was like the same thing when I know you watched the Epstein documentary that was on Netflix, but when he was in West Palm Beach, right? Or I'm sorry, when he was in Palm Beach, in his island down there, or his like mansion, you know, he would go to the poor part of West Palm and go and find people who were coming from bad home environments. It was sad, but that's sort of the tactic that they had to lure these poor victims in. Just trying to, really prey on the poor and vulnerable there. It's sort of the same thing that this was trying to illustrate too.
Yeah, I agree. So another scene that I'd like to get your thoughts on was, and I think I think this represents what I think a lot of people, how would they react if they were in that situation, is remember when that couple, I think was the Brazilian wife with the American.
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
Accidentally booked it probably. And she's freaking out because she's not dumb, right? She sees that this is pretty much like, low. I'm not going to use the term white trash, but I'm going to say like lower income poverty people.
Right? She's expecting to go to a Disney resort, and they end up booking by mistake this motel that has a sort of a Walt Disney or a Magic Castle name, right? So it was a mix-up, and she's like, "This is not where I want to spend." Like, granted, like usually not someplace I'd want to stay, but she's coming off as super entitled at this point. And what was sad was, the kids bring in the luggage and they sort of expect a tip, and this lady's looking at them like scum. This pompous Brazilian.
Yeah, I think she's, and I there was a little joke in there, right? He says like, "Oh, all right, see, we don't know this character, but he named somebody that says booked it," and you can see that maybe he messed up because the names are just slightly off. It was like Magic something else, and it was but yeah,
no, it was Magic Castle. So they were trying to so the hotel's name was Magic Castle, the motel, and they were trying to go to Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, and so I think that scene is inserted there because there are people. Basically, it's like you're ignoring their existence, right? Like they are right there. I think the choice of putting the like filming in that motel so close to Disney World is to show that like you pass these people every day.
100%, and you don't bat an eye.
You don't even like bat an eye that they're like suffering in such a degree. And
the other part of that scene that was super powerful to me, I don't know if you remember this, but before they when the couple is arguing, right, about like to the hotel manager Bobby, like the two little kids, Mooney and Scooty, are looking at the through the window looking at these people, and I remember Mooney basically tells Scooty the lady's about to cry, and Scooty's like, how can you tell? And he's like, I can always tell when adults are about to cry. And what you see with that, it just spoke volumes, because this girl has probably seen her mom and other people go through so much, so many like bad things in life that you can just tell, and she's able to read every situation now.
Yeah, it's called unfortunately growing up fast.
Yeah, real fast.
Mooney at times infuriated me, but other times I just felt so bad for her.
You're in a bad environment there too, and you can't. As infuriating as she can make you, it's like, man, she wasn't given much guidance.
Yeah, she really wasn't. So, so now to insert some more details to help us with our conversation. So the parent.
The other thing you have to know is like they're only like 7, dude. You can't really blame the kid.
I think they're supposed to be 6 in this film.
Yeah, you can only blame them so much, dude.
So Mooney's mom early in the film works as an exotic dancer, which we'll talk about that, which is interesting because we've seen a lot of this trend in many films that we've discussed regarding class. But before we jump into that, and then I think Scooty's mom works for the restaurant, right? Yeah, the diner.
Yeah.
So going back to
it reminded me of like a Waffle House.
Yeah, Waffle House. There we go. We'll say Waffle House because it's the South too. But what's interesting is that we see this trend often in the films we've covered, right? So it seems like when you have no skills and you're a decently looking woman, the one thing you try to exploit and get money for is your sexuality.
Yeah.
And I think it's a tough area, because I know that like there's been this argument from people who work in the sex industry why it should be legalized and like it's not frowned upon. It should be like more normalized. But at the same time, I can also see like the argument of like this is really like exploitation, and we need to.
It is. I don't know what I will.
We need to have the conversation around like what is that boundary, because you can say that it's like, oh, I chose this, I'm this, but at the same time I read some of their stories and I go like, I feel like you're just telling yourself that story because you don't want to admit to yourself that you were being exploited. It's tough, right? Abusers always go through this, right? Like they say like, oh, I wasn't abused, it wasn't abuse, because they have this coping mechanism. Now I believe some do believe that they want to do this, they're really sexual, they love like doing everything, but I feel like a lot of women who end up making careers of this, whether that's, I'm saying sex industry as a whole, I think they tell themselves this narrative because it's, I'm sympathetic saying like, it takes a big mental leap to admit that maybe you were being exploited when you're at 18. How can you say like, this is what you chose at 18? Maybe you was for a minority, but I feel like a lot of these, they have to tell themselves that, and it's tough. I'm not demonizing them at all. I just think that like, I just have a hard time believing now that I'm seeing more material, reading more, that it's not just exploited, whether that's strippers, porn actresses, escorts, whatever, sex industry as a whole.
Mhm.
It's exploitative. And I see when you're at the bottom of the economic barrel, like Haley is in this film,
Mhm.
that it is very like she never comes across as somebody doing this because you know what, I really love this career. She's doing it because she needs to survive. And then we
No,
see this
it's a
too,
struggle.
but you know, before she makes that leap to let's
Yeah,
just
we'll get into that.
Craigslist type, but she's
Mhm.
trying to do the you know, the strip club stuff. So, and
And
it's
the
tough.
other thing that points to that is she points that she tells a unemployment benefit officer at one point in one scene that she was fired because she wasn't willing to do more with a client when she was working at the strip club.
Yeah, and it's true. Even though she's working that job, which doesn't pay her much, she still needs the. I believe it's like the benefits, unemployment, or basically
Unemployment benefits. Yeah,
unemployment benefits. Yeah, and it's. I think she doesn't get the benefit, right? Like,
I don't think so.
yeah. So, and then to build on that a little bit before you can jump in is like, then she starts like doing odd things, right? Like selling the perfumes for
Hmm.
up prices, also selling tickets. So basically, like trying to scalp a.
Well, we'll get to the ticket scene later, but
Yeah.
at first he was selling perfumes.
Yeah, and there's an interesting scene there, right? Where remember they get caught outside,
Hmm.
and she's like, "You can't do this here," and then like they have a scuffle with I want to say like
It's a security guard.
secure, yeah, golf cart secure. I like okay, I
Yeah.
will say this. I did laugh when the Haley said, "You're you're not like a police officer. You drive around in a golf cart." I did laugh at that.
Well, that was like when we saw mid '90s, right? He said they in the movie it was also a bunch of misfit kids in that movie, and some security guard is yelling at them, and he's like, "Calm down, you rent a cop." And like I was
Yeah.
like really trying to belittle. It's like poor people, man. I was like, these people are just trying to do their job too, and they're getting berated.
Yeah, so I went a little rant about Haley. I'm just curious about her character because I find her character to be like probably right there with Bobby, like in terms of like the movie and the story.
Well, I mean, she's in a bad situation. She's a single mom who really doesn't have a way to financially support herself. So she was a stripper, got fired, and then decides to, I guess she found a connection where she could buy perfumes wholesale and try to sell them to, these country club type of people, right? And so she'll wait outside a parking lot, and I'm seen these type of vendors before where they'll try to get you, and they'll either try to sell you things or they're knockoffs, one or the other, right? And so you can't really tell. And she's just berating, being like, "Yo, I can get you this perfume on the cheap. It'll make you like attractive to all the ladies." Type of saying whatever she can to try to make a quick buck. But that'll only get you so far. And really, why when she really starts to crumble and go to alternative sources of income is, and this is a scene we didn't touch upon, but her and the mother of Scooty there's a rift there that happens because Mooney essentially one day Mooney, Scooty, and the other little girl that we haven't really talked about, Jancy, who is actually the granddaughter of the lady whose car they spat on at the beginning of the movie. They go and Mooney and Scooty take Jancy to these old condominiums that have since been abandoned. And so they go and, they're being kids. They're just being nosy and kind of mischievous. So they're going and exploring. And at one point, Mooney tells Scooty, "Yo, light this little, let's light something in the fireplace on fire." And so they do. And they create a huge fire there, right? And so at that point, all the kids run back because they realize, oh, things are going bad and the whole place is going to catch on fire. It's going to be arson. And then Mooney and Scooty go back to their moms in their respective rooms. And Mooney and Haley go to check out the fire because they're like, yeah, let's go see the destruction. And then Scooty doesn't really want to go. And Scooty's mom can sense something's wrong. She's like, what happened? What aren't you telling me? And it's insinuated that Scooty told his mom that Mooney told me to light the house on fire. And so at that point, then it was like, you know what? Where they cut off all ties with Mooney and her mom. And then that really creates a rift because now they no longer have their free food connection. Now Haley doesn't have someone to look after Mooney because that was supposed to be her girl. And so she has no real, and she doesn't have really a way to provide income, right? So things look rough at that point, and so Haley decides that she's going to, unfortunately, work as a prostitute to try to make her bills paid, right? And so that's when you start to get into more uncomfortable scenarios. I don't know if you want to touch upon them or not.
Yeah, I wanted to roll back because before she makes that jump, I think she takes it out a little bit on what's the mother's name, Ashley, and they go to the restaurant, right? Remember she orders.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And she orders all that food, and even Ashley's like, "Can you afford this?" And basically it's like, oh, this is a good scene because you can tell there's dialogue, but it's really a lot of
Oh, you're talking about when they go and they're like, "What's wrong?" Oh, we just nothing. Like it's the situation is never addressed. It's always a white elephant.
No, I mean, well, yeah, I was gonna say like there's dialogue, but there's a lot of unspoken truth. So the setting is, I mean, I'm gonna describe the scene again. Like, they go to the diner where Ashley works, and they start ordering a lot of food, right? And it's very
we're gonna be there all day.
Yeah, it's very obvious that she's being obnoxious because what we do know, and this is something that I think we can both speak to, is that like, when you have that odd out either a couple or individual at a restaurant, they can't deter business. There's another scene later that I want to touch upon before.
Yeah, dude.
When they move to the hotel, but before I get there, I
have a little side story I want to talk about after, but go ahead.
Okay, but so she's being really disruptive, and they don't like. It's like they're trying to, Ashley wants to sort of just get out, right? And she can't afford the food, so it's insinuated that like just take the food and leave. And so they she takes, she leaves the extra for the leftovers and the boxes, but you can sense that she's really frustrated still because she throws it away, basically throws it to the ground. But that scene I liked a lot because it's like that's something that we all can relate to, right? Like, oh, I want you to leave, but I don't want to tell you to leave because I don't want to look like a bad.
Oh yeah, and sometimes it's yeah.
And then Ashley's boss is giving her the look like, her, get her out of here, like because everyone else is just like, what is going on? Yeah, you've been there, right? I've been
being obnoxious, dude. I mean, I remember clearly there was back in our hometown. This is years ago. I went with my dad. We went to go to a Salvadorian restaurant, and we were eating because I love pupusas. So we were getting some pupusas over there, and we're talking whatever, and this family comes in. Or it was kind of this misfit. I don't know. They all knew each other, but this party comes in, I'll say, and they're eating, but then they're just talking up a storm. They're smack talking like the servers, saying this food is terrible, and they're just being obnoxious, just dropping F-bombs left and right. And we're like, what is your problem, man? I was like, if you don't like the food, just leave. But yeah, they were just being super obnoxious, just berating the staff, and I just felt so bad for them because I was like, these people are just like doing their job, serving, and they don't get paid enough to deal with your nonsense, man. Your hoopla, it's just stupid. And yeah, and I don't like when people are disrespectful or just cause a scene in an area for no reason. And the food was good. I will point to that. They were good pupusas. People were just being very arrogant and obnoxious.
Yeah. So to wrap up that scene, you see that like. You sense that Haley is trying to, on purpose, be disruptive as a payback, and also get free food. But I think I can't remember the timing. I think before she gets into the prostitution, and I do want to talk about that scene. That's another powerful scene. But there's that other scene where like the trick they do because the rule of the motel is you can't stay for like indefinitely, right? So they move. Yeah. They get you out, and then they. I
think you can't stay in a room for more than a month or something like that.
Yeah. They move them out, and then they vacate them, and then they
can't stay at another room. They have to like stay someplace else for a day.
Yeah.
And then so they're enforcing that.
And so the old, I guess the old connect with the previous owner was with I forgot the name of the other motel.
Yeah. I know what scene you're talking about.
Another motel, right? And it was like an unwritten agreement. But there's new management, I think new ownership basically. Mm-hmm. And the lady
bought out by an Indian lady.
Yeah, the Indian lady. And this is
we're not honoring the agreement anymore. This is new management.
And I give credit to the director because this is an uncomfortable truth.
Woo, yeah. This
new money came in. She's not dumb. She knows that like people like Haley and her daughter are going to deter business because she's trying to build this motel up as like she's probably first generation is my guess. and she's trying to make this a platform for her family.
No, I think she's from India. It would be my guess.
So whatever. Recently immigrated. Wants her kids to have the American dream, and she knows that this could be the platform to build that generational wealth, right? But she knows that Haley and her daughter are going to deter business, right? So there's this really powerful emotional scene where Bobby, Willem Dafoe's character, is like, are you kidding me? Like, this is what they're going to do, sleep on the street? Like, and you feel like this tension, right? And depending on your sympathies, you might side with the business owner that's taken over, because I understand what her logic is, but at the same time, you're like, this is a tough situation, right? Like, it's not like they want to send it out on the street, right? And again, I haven't seen anything like explicit around like him saying this, but I think it's something that we are seeing in America, right? We're seeing new groups come in, trying to build that generational wealth in states like Florida, North Carolina, California.
Well, everywhere, dude.
Everywhere
there's opportunity.
And it must, I don't want to get into politics, but you must feel really anxious and maybe even angry that you see maybe newer comers like building up and you're trapped in your cycle, So
the one thing, and I have a slightly different take than you, and I could be wrong in my interpretation, but a lot of times people who immigrate here who, I'm not going to say all, but there does tend to be this sort of class outlook, right? Where, especially from India, especially where we come from in California, there's a lot of engineers, a lot of people who come from, the affluent areas of India. And you're coming from that level of society and you come over here. And I think this lady does, or her character does come from like the affluent class of India. And you come over here because there's opportunity. There tends to be this class down look where you're looking at these people and she's like, no, I don't want to deal with them. These people are lower class. She even says that, yeah, you're in this situation because of decisions you made. Clearly like looking, like snubbing her nose at the lower class of the US. And so I think that's really what he wanted to play with. It's not just the upper class here. It's people who come and immigrate from abroad who are part of these higher socioeconomic classes, come here and they still have the same sort of viewpoint at the lower class groups here in the U.S. I think that's really what it was trying to show you, is more sort of class differences, how classes view the people who are sort of below them.
Yeah, I could see that interpretation. It's just that knowing that the director comes from a background, I just don't know if he's that like nuanced with.
I'm not sure, but I've seen that and I've heard stories like that before. So that's why I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I can totally see that.
But I think regardless, I think the scene has its attendant effect.
It was.
Then
and then
they don't want to go ahead.
Well, so the one thing I will say is, it is new management. She doesn't have to honor that agreement. And the way Haley acted by just trashing the motel lobby, sort of, unfortunately, she played up to the expectations that this lady had of her.
Yeah.
Right? It was just acting out.
It was a self-fulfilling prophecy because, again, Bobby's torn, right? Because he sees that like Haley's not helping her case, but also the new owner of this motel.
Nah, dude. Someone comes to me and just starts like cussing me out, I'm probably not going to give you much time on day either.
Yeah, but what you see is that the hotel owner is also pegging her with a narrative, even though she knows like nothing of her backstory or anything.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's why like I think my favorite character in this movie was Bobby, because he was the one that you could really sympathize as like this.
He was trying to help, man.
Yeah, conduit between management and the tenants, between motels. Honestly, that guy has like I could see maybe why he got divorced. That must be like a tough job to like always have that baggage with you.
It's a lot of baggage, dude.
Yeah,
because you're dealing with all the problems of all the people, all the clients you have there, and you're trying to help them and be understanding. That's a lot to take on. And he's very sympathetic to the kids.
Yeah, he is, because like there's that scene where he lets them hide under his desk, right?
Yeah, where they're playing hide and seek.
And they unplug the. I think they messed his computer up.
Yeah.
But yeah, that like motel scene where they have to go across the street to find them a room. That was a great scene. I really is one of the the scenes that really stuck with me in this film. And the house burning too. I mean, I didn't get to it, but that was an interesting scene.
I love how like some of the clients or like some of the people there, who were the residents. They're like, they should have just let that thing burn. It's been such an eyesore for years. I was just laughing when one of the ladies said that.
Yeah. Because they try to like they try to put it out, right?
Yeah.
So this all leads to, because this is all building up, right? So it's all building up because what's happening here in this story is that Haley is against the wall, right? She disconnected with her friend. She can't make the rent, right? Bobby keeps telling her, "You're where's the money? Where's the money?" Right?
Yeah, and she's getting the money. It's just later and later.
Yeah. Before we get into the prostitution, she does try to sell the tickets that she stole. I know you wanted to talk about
the
that.
Tickets. That was after.
After she went to prostitution?
Yes, dude.
Okay, so she does it before. Again,
they're not tickets; they're bands, right?
The
and
bands.
She stole them from one of her clients.
Yeah, but anyways, if prostitution happened before, we can just discuss that. Yeah, she starts posting basically images on a Craigslist.
Or she starts posting ads saying that looking for clients for because she's trying to turn to prostitution to make money so that she can make her ends meet. It's really sad situation to be in, but essentially, and what's really uncomfortable is that you're not aware of necessarily what's going on, but she tells like her daughter, okay, it's time for bath time. And so she puts her daughter in the bath to, play with her duckies or whatever, her toys. And the other thing that's very suspicious to the audience member is that she puts her phone in and she's blasting hip hop music from the phone. And so that's all you see is just the kids sort of there playing with their duckies and just loud hip hop music is being played in the bathroom. That's it. What's insinuated later is she does that because whenever it's bath time, that just means that she's going to have a client over, which is
yeah. And this is really this is where it's not really hidden to us, because there is that scene where the guy walks in because he has to use the bathroom.
Well, no, but that's the second time that you see her. It's like bath time.
But I mean, how they could have just. I found it interesting, the decision, because they could have just left it there, and I think we could have gotten it. But the next, like you said, that next scene, that follow-up scene, I'm gonna say follow because
it's just like you hear someone do it, and he needs to use the restroom, and you don't see him, you just see from
and he freaks out that there's a kid in there, right?
Yeah, and she's like, "What the heck? You can't just do that, blah blah blah." And she's like, "You need to leave." And I was just like, and you're at that point, you're just like, "Man, this is rough, dude." But I'm sure there are people who are in this situation.
But I guess what I found curious is, you think the follow-up scene was necessary? Because I think that we could have gotten it with just, like you said, that insinuation. The follow-up.
Yes and no. I think it just wanted to show you the uncomfortableness of. I think he did it for two reasons. One, it was you wonder, I guess, if the dude would have gone through with it, knowing that there was a kid in the bathroom, right? And two, it just sort of really affirms, and they didn't. I guess they insinuate, or they showed you without really showing you a lot, because you never see the interaction. You just see the kid's face there, and part of why I think they wanted to show you is they wanted to show you the innocence that she had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, she did not.
Because she even said later on. So that was the same client that she stole the bracelets from, and later on the guy goes to confront. And the daughter asks, "Oh, does he need to use the restroom again?" That's when you're like, "God dang!"
And she shows some street smarts, because she presses "Oh, I don't know you," because he knows if he admits "Oh, why I was there," he's
he's screwed. I mean, they both committed a crime.
And Bobby picks up on that, because he's like, "Wait a second, you can follow with the police. You can, he's not gonna follow with the police while he was there.
Of course not, dude. Yeah. Oh, anyway, so what ends up happening is it's found out later on that there are these 4 bracelets that she had that were loaded that she stole from the guy, but this guy paid basically bracelets for his family to go to Disney World, right? And they're expensive, probably total $1,200 for everything, because they seem like VIP bands basically. And this she tries to get a refund, and she's like, no, but then she ends up finding some dude and they won't accept a refund on these things, right? Yeah. And then she finds some dude who's looking to buy bands, and she gives a discounted price. It's $400 or $500 for all of them, which is a pretty good deal if they work. And so later on,
we the audience know they're gonna work, but it's interesting how they were doubting. Some people passed, right? But the people who they got lucky, dude.
Of course, but someone if it was me or you, we'd be like, nah, dude, we don't know you. Like,
Yeah.
it's super sketchy, and you will never be able to find this person if they're
But
fake.
I would have increased my confidence a little bit because she did say like, "Oh, I'll even walk with you up to," because she was super confident, right? Like,
Yeah,
you have to be like, we know people who BS this well, but
yeah,
to be that kind of confident, it would have got me thinking like, hey, let's just try it, because you're
yeah.
getting half off on these VIP bands. It's like
More
crazy.
than half. It was like a third
Yeah.
price.
But obviously, like, I'll let you finish. But the guy comes back and is like ticked. But go ahead.
Yeah. Anyway, but then the next scene, it's just you see the John come up, the client banging on the hotel door or the motel door of Haley's, and she like bang 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 because he was pissed because this girl jacked his stuff, and he's out like $1,500, right? And so he's like, I'm gonna call the police, you thief, blah blah blah. And she's like, I don't know you. And all of a sudden, Bobby's character comes up, right? And there's this huge confrontation. He kind of realizes what's going on, and this actually that move ended up being her downfall, right? Because it causes a huge scene, and then Bobby goes in to investigate later. And he like looks at the security camera footage, and then he goes back up to basically he diffuses the situation. Be like, if you want to file a police report, fine, but you're gonna have to say why you were here or how you know her. And then it's like, and he's like, and you're probably gonna have to tell your wife and kids that. And then the good dude's like, yeah, he realizes he can't go down that rabbit hole, and ends up leaving.
Yeah.
And so then the next thing is, Bobby goes and looks at security camera footage and notes that there's been a lot of traffic going into that motel room, right, during nights. And so at that point, he sort of tells Haley, has a discussion. He's like, you can't have any guests in here. They have to register in the front office first. And then she freaks out and gets super pissed and just like berates Bobby, which just goes to show like the amount of crap that he has to take. And man, how I would not envy having that job.
Yeah. Yeah, because she Haley's character, and I give credit to the actress. She's knows
spoiled, dude.
Yeah, she knows how to flip the switch where it's like she goes from like 0 to 100 and many, like in some scenes in this film.
Uh-huh.
Right? You could argue that she's really emotionally imbalanced. But yes, you're right. This leads to her downfall because I don't know if you want to continue, but obviously,
You can go ahead.
What continues next is, I believe, doesn't she get like reported?
Mm-hmm. What?
Right? And then I'm trying to remember.
No. So the next sequence is basically, because she can't have any more clients, right? Because Bobby put a stop to this, and you can't have anyone visiting your room. Then she goes and tries to reconcile with Ashley.
Oh yeah, she asks for the money, right? And there's that whole scuffle.
She reconciles with Ashley, and basically she's saying, "Hey, like I'm sorry things turned out." And then Ashley's suspicious, right? Because she knows this girl. That's her girl, and she knows all her tactics. And then within the flip of the switch, then Haley asks Ashley, "Yo, I'm a little late on the rent. Can you spot me?" And she's like, "This girl, she didn't really mean anything. She just needs the money, right?" She said, "Nah, like I know what tricks you've been up to lately, right?"
Oh yeah.
And so you've been tricking. And she's like, and she pulls up, and it's like an ad of like advertising herself on some escort site. And she's like, "That's you." And she's like, "That's not me." And she's like, "Dude, you think I don't?" Oh, the other thing about Haley is she's got these very, obviously the spot body tattoos. She's like, "You think I don't know that those are your tattoos there? You stupid." And then she basically says, she's like, "If Mooney was there while you were doing that," she's like, "I'll kill you," basically. And she's like, "You're like basically calls her a horrible mom." And then that's
Scotty. She said her kid.
What?
She said her kid. If Scotty was even exposed to that, like, "I'll kill you."
No, Mooney. She said Mooney.
She said Mooney. Oh, okay.
Yeah, because no, she knows she's like this chick is terrible. I know for potentially having her kid in the room while she's servicing dudes.
But this leads to that fight scene. Yeah.
And so she said she's like, if Mooney was ever there, she's like, "I'll kill you. You like terrible mom," or she says something along those lines, and then Haley loses it and just starts wailing and beats the bejesus out of Ashley. And at that point, and I remember being there, and I was like, "Whoa, that elevated so quick." And then the next scene, it's like, yeah, essentially it's insinuated that Ashley reported her to Child Protective CPS, and so then that sort of leads to the whole spiraling. I don't know if you want to pick it up from there.
Yeah, and we're at the.
What did you think? What did you think about that scene?
The fight scene?
Yeah.
I mean, it confirmed what I was saying earlier, that like Haley's character, it seemed like she was just emotionally really unstable, right? Like she somehow flips between 0 and 100, right? Like you could give me angry, right? But she goes from like I'm getting, you know,
huge swing
to like, oh, I'm now gonna start punching the crap, you know, out of you. And that scene was like strong because like you said, like it takes you aback because you expect maybe a verbal, but she just jumps to. I remember when she just like hits her in the face, I was just like, whoa, like we're going there, I guess, huh? And she doesn't let up, right? It's like a good, you know, decent amount of like.
Oh no, you see Ashley's face and it's swollen.
Yeah, it's like hella messed up. And yes, I think Ashley did. It's insinuated. I tend to believe that she did call.
Oh yeah, she did. But like, that's it. Yeah.
But yes, what's interesting is when Child Protective Services get involved, you see that like. You see what I like about this movie is that you see like there's people who are not like nobody's demonized, but they're all like trapped within this like system, right? Like Haley's trapped, Bobby's trapped, and even the CPS people, they're just doing it by the book, asking the questions. But you know that these systems, kids fall through the cracks all the time, and it is disruptive for a child to be torn from their parents too. We do know this.
Sure.
But yeah, like the questions they're asking just seem so like it reminded me of Platform. It's so bureaucratic. You're like, okay, like this is you're asking this because it's the checklist, right?
No, it's a checklist. Oh, you got to follow your report. Yeah, and so I think the agency is called DCF. It's like the Florida Department of Children and Families. And so they call her, and then so they're like, all right, well, we're going to return to do a follow up, right?
Yeah.
And so then, you know. Haley is kind of delusional at times in the movie, so she and Mooney start cleaning up. They get rid of the
room. Like I was like, it's not gonna work.
They clean the room, give away, and then she gives away her weed. And then the last tidbit is you see Mooney and her go to some resort and act like they are the staying at the hotel. And so they give like at a certain point they're eating right at this fancy like place. And she's like, oh, what room number are you? She says something like 333 or something like that.
Well, I think that's her room number. So she just said her room number at a resort.
Yeah, exactly. At a resort. And it gets charged to that room, basically. Because you have to be staying at the hotel to get charged. But, you know, she got slipped through and they have a really nice meal. But then at the same time, you can tell she misses her DCF appointment. And they go to the room and basically they say, you know, can you take like Mooney away or walk her away? And she's like, dude, we have evidence. We look at the footage that a lot of dudes have been entering this room, like 9 or 10. And she's like, this is not a place for a family. And like, you basically lost custody of your kid, right?
Yeah.
And so like, then she starts gathering things and they take her. And then Mooney kind of realizes what's going on after they go to Scooty. Scooty says, like, oh, she's like,
Before you jump to that, there is the powerful scene. There's 2 scenes that I want to still talk about, which is I think you're getting to the ending. That's the one of them. But when they're on the steps and the agent is trying to talk to Mooney, right? And like you said, Mooney does realize. I thought that scene was powerful.
No. Mooney realizes after. Mooney realizes she's like, yo, I want to say goodbye to Scooty, my friend. And Ashley says, can I, like, they go to the door. Ashley answers, and the Child Protective Services agent says, Scooty or Mooney would like to say goodbye to Scooty because she's going away for a couple of days, right? And then Scooty's like, oh, like, enjoy your like new family. Lets it slip that she's going to a new family, and then that's when she has a breakdown with the agent.
Yeah, right? Like that scene with the stairs. I was like, wow, because like the agent falls and everything, but I found like that scene to be powerful because she's trying to escape but she can't. Like everybody, it seems like a lot of the characters who are suffering in this film are trying to escape in their own way. They can't.
Of course.
And so that's like the trap of this film, right? Mm-hmm. And I think, to your point, like that was like we're at the final stretch. So yeah, I mean, she's clearly going to be taken away. There was that scene earlier too where Haley's packing the bags and she yells at these agents saying like, yes, because this is like normal, right? Stripping her from her mother and what she knows, right? Or this is gonna help her, right? Because they keep
Yeah.
saying, we're trying to help her, we're trying to help your daughter, Mooney. And
She's like, you want to help me to help you take her away from me. She's like,
Yeah.
are you out of your mind, like doing that to a mother? Blah blah blah.
that was a
And I mean,
dude.
I don't like a lot of Haley's choices in this movie, but the one thing I think she always cared about her daughter.
Yeah.
In her own way.
So you're right. You're leading. I cut you off, but you're leading up to when she goes down and she finds Janice, and then
Jancy,
and she's like, Mooney's crying and like she's.
Oh, that was brutal. Like seeing like her like talking. She's like, I might not see you forever. You're like one of my like really good friends. She's just like caught up in the little kid tears, and that was yeah, I don't know. That was a brutal scene too.
And then Jancy, they run, and then you don't realize until the last scene that they basically ran to Disney World. I don't know how they snuck in, but they snuck in. But
that's not important. You get the point.
The happiest place on earth.
Yeah, to try to help her friend. But man, that was it was an interesting movie and just really raw.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I thought it was I like this one more than Hillbilly Elegy. It seems like these movies are compared because they do discuss like that poor white not middle class.
Oh, low class.
Low class. I prefer the Florida Project just because I thought the style, the direction, and the juxtapose, because the other one's based on a novel, which is it's hard to adopt novels, but like you have the raw material. This one you can tell how the original scripts, the Disney World's Florida being the location and
the backdrop there.
It's juxtaposed, like it's everything is like well thought out. I did like that and appreciate that. So. But yeah, we can get into ratings if you want to go first. But
yeah, so I really liked the style of this film. This was like what I would call. I know it is considered. It's like an epitome of like a slice of life film because it's showing you this sort of aspect of society that really doesn't get touched upon a whole lot, especially in films. I like that it kind of felt like a documentary at times. I don't know, just sort of I think it was the way it was shot to me. Gave it that sort of aesthetic, that feeling. I really liked Bobby's character. I thought he did a great job in this role, really bringing out sort of a character that really tried to empathize and bring out the humanity, but he was stuck in a really terrible situation of really having to enforce rules and not really being able to help out people all the time. But you could see that he really wanted to help kids. Like, he really brought a lot of humanity to his character. I thought that, even these actors I've never heard of, I thought the kids did a great job. And the single moms as well. I thought I can't really point to a bad acting job. There were so many uncomfortable moments in this movie, just based on the situations, that I thought the way that the script was written was just, I did a great job. There's nothing that I could really fully criticize, I would say, in this film. And I thought he did a good job. I forgot who's the director's name. Sean Baker.
Sean Baker, yeah.
I give him credit. This is the first film that I've seen. I see why it got such a reception. So for me, it gets a 9 out of 10.
Oof, that's interesting.
Yeah.
As you know, I'm a very fair and balanced critic.
Yes, sure.
So I think this movie was really good. I enjoyed the topic. I enjoyed like the structure of the scenes. Like I said, acting was, I thought, really good. Defoe, like we know him, so we know he's gonna do his best to put in a good performance. I give a huge credit to the kids and also I'm gonna call them B-list, even though they might not even be B-list. They're probably like D-list actors, because I don't know if they're gonna be in anything else ever again or anything big that's big. But yeah, I did like the direction, the style. And I will say that like it's a film that I think can resonate with a lot of people, even if you're not from that world. You don't live in Florida. I've actually never been to Florida myself, so like
it's an interesting place, dude.
Yeah, you can resonate with that. I think where I would criticize the film a bit is maybe because I'm becoming older and more rugged. some of those emotional scenes I know he was going for with the kid tears, like you were saying, it didn't hit me. I actually felt that was like emotional porn. I was like, you could do without it. Like I know what you're trying to do, but like I'm
Dude,
not.
are you kidding? This is where I'm going to push back on you. This is a kid who's about to be ripped away from his mom, her whole environment. That's not getting you the emotion? Are you kidding?
I mean, I felt for.
You're just cold-hearted, bro.
I felt for the child. I felt for the family, but in the end, like, this is why I think the director deserves a lot of credit, because it's trying to show you the viewer, I think the audience, and it's something that people forget is like in this situation there are no good choices, and so I do appreciate that, because I don't.
Of course, but as a kid, like, look, you're about to be ripped away from your whole world, and you realize that. And you're never gonna. Your mom's far from perfect, but you're never gonna see your mom again, probably.
Maybe, we don't know, right? That's unwritten, but yeah. So the probability is no.
Not likely. But my point is, I mean, how can you say that? How can you say that those tears didn't really hit you or hit home? I mean, you felt like it was forced. It's like,
it wasn't
come on, dude.
It wasn't forced, but it was like, I think I'm becoming more. What's the term? Like, how do I say this? Like, I just maybe I'm becoming so critical with my viewings. Where
apparently it's like overly critical at that. If that's where you have issue,
because it's like, no, I think I don't have like issue. It's just more like I pick maybe because I've watched so many films now and stuff. It's like I just pick up on these techniques where I go like, this is clearly a technique, which it's going to resonate. It's going to have its effect. But it's not like it didn't like I wasn't like, oh.
So you would have just cut it out? No, I thought it was needed.
Oh, I would put it in. Yeah, it's just that me as being fair and balanced. Like I have a tougher bar. So I'm actually going with 7.5.
What are you, the no spin? Huh? What are you, the no spin zone? Bill O'Reilly over here, fair and balanced.
I'm not Bill O'Reilly. That guy's a sham. Anyways, I'm going with 7.5 out of 10. I think the movie is like solid. It's good. I would recommend it, but it's not a film where, like, here's a difference where there were some scenes in I, Daniel Blake where it definitely hit me harder. And I think it hit me because I think in the end of the day, kid tears, they are sad, and it hurts.
I think it just hit different. I don't know if it hit me harder.
To me, it hit me harder because I think it's also how like you craft a story. Because in the end, like, those kid tears are impactful, but you see that like Haley was on the path where this was what's going to lead. I think what I hated about Daniel Blake, not hated, I liked, but also hated watching, was that you see that there's just so many opportunities where this didn't have to happen. And that kills me, I think with Florida Project, and I think this is what he was going for, is that like sooner or later she was gonna be in that situation, and unfortunately Mooney too.
Yes, but what I will push back, it's like she didn't necessarily have to go down that route, right? Her stubbornness and alienating Ashley, for one, it was her pride, right? That she severed that relationship. She didn't necessarily have to go down the road of prostitution. She could have found a job at a restaurant like her girl Ashley did. She burned a lot of bridges.
Yes, but I think that goes to like that's why I keep mentioning her emotional, mental, because I think to your point, if she had the help, the medical help, or just that infrastructure
or a better temperament.
But like we always say, like if you're on a bad team, even if you're decent or good, if everything around you is bad, you can't get out of that. And I think that's why I felt hopeless in this film, because I see that like you're right, she could have made different decisions, but because of her emotional temperament, her mental framework, her habits, I always felt like she just was trapped. Like she was never, unless there was somebody external to say, look, I'm taking the situation, we're gonna get you the help. And we're going to work on it every day. There was just no hope for her. Eventually she was going to end up in this path, and Mooney.
Yeah. I mean, my biggest, I guess the reason I couldn't get him a 10 out of 10 is just like the rewatchability for this is just low. I mean, it's a very important story to tell, but it's too depressing now. Like rewatch.
Yeah. So I'm going with 7.5 out of 10. Solid film. That's my solid rating film.
That's fair. I mean, everyone's got their own little, I guess personal preferences. So, I thought it was good. Like I thought it was very good, especially given the fact that this was for most of the cast. This was the first time they actually appeared on camera. was really impressive. They did a great job. I would have thought they would have been a couple films deep at least.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I just for me to give movies an 8, it has to be a movie that I will be like, you know what, it doesn't make my top tier, but it's so close. This is like in between like good and like hitting that top tier. So
That's fair. I mean, we
if I have to give like a specific decimal, like we've been doing, I'm gonna say
no,
this.
that's fine. It's fine, dude.
I would say like 7.8, but I'm gonna.
That's fine, dude.
Because it's easy.
7.5's fine. But yeah, it's not like I think we're in agreement that we tend to review films that we kind of like have a feeling we're gonna like for the most part. It's not like we're reviewing something like, oh man, I'm gonna take a shot, but like the Chronicles of Riddick or something like that, where it probably would not be anywhere near a top of the list.
Yeah, I mean, just to wrap up, I try to pick films in general that I think are going to lead to our good discussions on our podcast. Sometimes I'll miss, but I'm trying to like make sure even if we give it like a 6, like there were things to like discuss. Like I feel like if we did like a movie like
Absentia, that was my big miss of the.
Oh, we had to stretch that, but I'm trying to get more contemporary.
We stretched the heck. Thank God it was actually in California. Otherwise, we would have been done.
But like, there's I don't watch them anymore. But I'm trying to think of like a random movie that like is bad, but like people watch all the time.
Die Hard.
I guess I would never pick. I mean, I enjoyed Die Hard as a kid, but like I would never pick Die Hard because like at one point it's like, what are we going to talk about? Like, not much.
Oh, actually, it could probably lead to a good discussion about how we stereotype other cultures kind of unfairly.
That's true. I guess there's always something you could pluck, but it's like I find
because it's always the Russian bad guy.
Yeah, that's true. But I find a little bit more meaning in films like Shoplifters in this one. Like I know it's the class thing, but also like how the narratives, like they stick with you. So to give some points to this movie, it's like it's the narratives that get you in this movie, and
sure.
That's why it's a good film and why it got the reception it did. I think Dafoe even got like nominated for some awards. Because he was the only name people recognized, I think. But
sure.
I think like Haley and the Mooney also probably deserve more recognition than maybe they got. But yeah, this is a director I got my eye on now because I'm it's yeah.
So we might be reviewing more of his films in the future.
Yeah, but I'll leave it at that. My last 2 cents.
Cool. And with that, that concludes this week's episode. If you enjoyed our commentary on the film and really the themes of the and topics of the film, and just more generally, please like and subscribe to our channel and stay tuned next week where we will be switching it up and be going very old school. We'll be reviewing I believe it's 1944 film, Mexican film, Maria Candelaria. So that will be an interesting discussion because I'm sure we'll both have a lot to say since we both have family that is Mexican. So stay tuned till next week.